Hey, it's Matt Haynes, and today you are listening to the Studio Electronics SE2200 microphone right here. This is a 1-inch diaphragm cardioid condenser microphone. It is a phenomenal microphone. It's an all-around, all-purpose, great microphone. You can record vocals on it. You can put it up to a guitar cabinet. You can use it for overheads, for drums, all sorts of stuff. The question is, though, is this microphone suitable for podcasters, streamers, and YouTubers? Before we get started reviewing this microphone, I just want to say that SE Electronics did loan me a couple of microphones. They did not send me any free stuff. They're not paying me. I'm not required to give them a good review. And unfortunately, I have to return these microphones when I'm done. As I mentioned before, this microphone has a 1-inch diaphragm. The diaphragm is the thing that moves back and forth and actually collects the sound. It's the thing that makes a microphone a microphone. And when you have a 1-inch diaphragm, that makes it a large diaphragm condenser. And there's some advantages to having a large diaphragm. One, the microphone tends to have less self-noise, so it's going to be less noisy. And two, they tend to be more sensitive, so you can record quieter sounds, quieter instruments, and not have the noise that the microphone might make, and you're going to be able to record those quieter signals faithfully. When I first opened up the box, the first thing I noticed, other than what a good-looking microphone it is how heavy it is. It's got a really good heft to it. Now, I know that has absolutely nothing to do with sound quality, but just the perception, it just feels like it's going to be a good mic. In fact, it's so heavy, I set it up on this stand to do some B-roll, and the stand was a little rickety, and it actually fell over. Now the microphone is fine, just don't tell SE Electronics that I tipped their microphone over. The SE2200 sells for about $300 US. When I checked some online retailers, that was the price I was seeing, $299 or thereabouts. It's got 2 switches on it. We'll talk about those switches in a moment because I will demonstrate them for you. And it comes with a couple of accessories in the box. It's got the shock mount here, which we'll talk about as well in just a moment. And we've got the pop filter. Now the pop filter is interesting. It's just a metal mesh circle on a plastic stick, and the plastic stick has these little sawtooth kind of things, so you can slide it in and lock it. So you can't use the pop filter except with this particular shock mount. Now the shock mount is designed specifically for this microphone. It doesn't hold it by the body. It actually holds it by the little sleeve around the XLR jack. It's made out of a very solid plastic. It's not metal, but I don't think that's a particularly big deal. This pop filter does do a really good job. It's also really big, which is one possible issue if you're on camera with this microphone, because as you can see, even though I have the mic off to one side here, the pop filter is still kind of obscuring my face a little bit. And I thought, yeah, okay, cool pop filter. I'll try, some third-party nylon pop filter instead. And you know what? This one actually does a much better job. So the pop filter, it's big, it's a little bulky, but it's actually doing a really good job for plosives. So let me just demonstrate that here. Okay, so I am right up against the pop filter. I don't have any low roll-off or anything like that. And so this is probably putting my mouth about 2 or 3 inches from the diaphragm. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. There may have been a little bit of pop in there, but let's hear it without the pop filter. Okay, I'm about the same distance here. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. Now, most condenser microphones are really susceptible to plosives like that, so that was no exception, but the pop filter's doing a really nice job. As I mentioned, there are 2 switches on the microphone. One of them is a 2-stage pad switch, or it reduces the sensitivity or gain. So here is normal, and here is minus 10 dB. And here is minus 20 dB. The other switch is a high-pass filter, or a low roll-off filter if you prefer. And it's got 2 settings. You can roll it off at either 80 hertz or 160 hertz. And both settings are a 6 dB per octave roll-off. And so let's take a listen there. Let me get right on axis here so that you can hear the direct sound. And this is no roll-off whatsoever. This is rolling off at 80 hertz. This is rolling off at 80 hertz, and I'm just repeating myself so you can hear what it sounds like. And and this is rolling off a little higher. This is rolling off at 160 hertz, rolling off at 160 hertz. So a low roll off is useful for a couple of things, and one is if your pop filter's not catching all those plosives, you can hit the roll off switch and it will lessen the impact a little bit. You'll still be hitting the diaphragm with air, but that low frequency pulse won't go through quite as strongly, and if you're using a compressor or a limiter, it's not going to smack your audio around quite as much. I think from the perspective of a YouTuber, a streamer, a podcaster, having a low frequency roll-off is really primarily going to be useful for plosives, but it's still a great thing to have. So what are some competitor microphones to this that we would maybe want to compare specs with? Well, one that comes to mind is the Røde NT1. It's a similar price point. It's a little bit quieter. It's also a little bit more sensitive, but both of these microphones are extremely quiet. Now, the Røde NT1 has a very flat frequency response. It's got a little bit of a bump starting around 3 kilohertz, but otherwise it's pretty flat. The SE2200 is also very flat, also has a bump around 3K, but then also has an additional little bump in the sort of the airy 10K region. That could potentially make this microphone sound a little bit more open than the NT1, but that really comes down to personal perception. The Røde NT1 also has a shock mount in the capsule itself, which the SE2200 doesn't, so that could reduce some handling noise. However, the Røde NT1 has no roll-off, no attenuation, no switches, so basically you get what you get and there's no sound modification possible. Another competitor to this microphone might be the Sennheiser MK4, also a transformerless design like the NT1, but not like the SE2200. The Sennheiser MK4 is a little bit more expensive. It goes for about $400. I think the shock mount on it is probably an improvement over the SE2200, but you're also paying for it. The MK4 is a little bit noisier than the Røde NT1 or the SE2200. It also has a built-in roll-off that starts at about 100 hertz and then gets even steeper at 60 hertz. So if you have a low-pitched voice, or if you're recording a low instrument like bass or something like that, that might impact your sound a little bit. The SE2200, on the other hand, is flat just about to 20 hertz when it starts rolling off. So if you want extreme frequency accuracy, the 2200 is probably the one to go with. If you're just starting out with your YouTube or podcast studio, or you got a home recording studio and you're looking to upgrade, you're probably wondering, well, is this worth the upgrade? Because it's about $300, and there are certainly cheaper condenser microphones out there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to compare this microphone to some cheaper microphones so that you can get a sense of, is this worth the extra money? By the way, I'm not adjusting the input gain on my preamp, so we can get kind of a sense of the different sensitivities of the microphone. And although I notice I'm also a little bit closer to this microphone because it doesn't come with a pop filter. This is the MXL V67G. I think G might stand for green. Obviously, this definitely has a different look than the SE2200. It also has a very different price point. It's about $80. So that is much cheaper than the SE2200. Why am I using this in comparison? One, this is a pretty common mic. You will see this in a lot of studios. And two, it is a large diaphragm condenser microphone. It's got a 1-inch condenser, or maybe even a little bit bigger, but it's got a very different sound to the SE2200 as well. It is a transformer-based microphone like the SE2200, but it's got quite a bit more self-noise, and it's also less sensitive than the 2200. That's kind of a double whammy in the noise department, because you've got extra self-noise, and then you're also going to have to boost that input gain to get the levels you need, and so that's going to increase that noise even more. Another thing with this microphone is that it has absolutely no adjustments, no switches, there's no filtering, there's no pads, so you get what you get, and if you don't like the sound, you can't really modify it. So I think you definitely get what you pay for with this microphone. It's a little bit too hyped in the high frequencies for my taste. I think it probably sounds good in a music store, when you got headphones on and there's a lot of noise that, that high frequency is going to cut through and make you go, ooh, nice. But I think it would be very fatiguing. And the fact that it doesn't come with a shock mount, it's just a basic microphone mount, and it also doesn't come with a pop filter, you're pretty limited. Another common microphone you might find in a home studio or a beginning YouTube or streaming podcast studio would be the AudioTechnica AT2020. It's got its price point going for it. It's about $100, but it's got some flaws too. For example, its frequency response is a little strange. It starts rolling off the low end at about 100 hertz, and then it has this weird boost as it gets lower. So I'm not sure why it does that. I don't know if that's even intentional. It does have a little bit of a boost in the high end, not as much as the MXL, but just enough to maybe give it a little bit more presence. Like the MXL, it does not come with a shock mount, and it does not come with a pop filter. I am quite a bit closer as a result, and I'm trying to use good mic technique so that I'm not just overwhelming the audio signal with plosives. If I turn directly on axis with this microphone, here's what the plosives sound like. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. Back to the SE2200. I really like the sound of this microphone. I feel like it's an honest sound. It's not hyped. It's not trying to like compensate for inferior quality components. It just sounds good. Comparing it to those cheaper microphones, you can really hear the difference in what a few $100 extra gets you. So if you're doing things that are not on camera, like broadcasting or non-video podcasting, this microphone is a no-brainer. I think it sounds awesome. The pop filter does a really good job, and the condenser microphone has that open quality that you're not going to get from a dynamic microphone necessarily. It just really sounds good. Actually, I was just bumping the microphone there accidentally, and the shock mount did a really good job. I didn't hear a whole lot of rumbling or thumping, so that's one thing to be said for the shock mount. If you're doing something on camera, like I am right now, streaming, YouTubing, you do have to take the pop filter into consideration. It is just a little bit big. I wish they had a smaller version, maybe a narrower one, or one that attached to the microphone. Like I said before, I did play around with some more discreet, diminutive pop filters, and they did not do a very good job. Now, you could also just hope for the best with microphone technique. Like, watch, I'll take this off right now. So I've got no pop filter on here now, and I am not speaking directly into the microphone, so any plosives are heading sort of forward rather than into the microphone. And with good microphone technique, you could probably get away without even using the pop filter. And with the addition of one of those low frequency roll-off switches, you could even improve things a little bit more, like this. So now I have the 80 hertz roll-off, and here, let's just do a plosive test again. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. That sounds pretty good, actually. I wasn't hearing a lot of plosives. So the pop filter is big, yeah, but maybe you don't actually use it. And now I'm thinking, hey, this microphone looks pretty good on camera. Maybe skip the pop filter, and you've got a winner. If you want to open up the world of options that is traditional microphones, then you're going to need some sort of USB microphone preamp. And if that's the case, you're going to want to check out this video I recently made, because it's about an inexpensive microphone preamp that connects via USB to your computer, and it sounds really good. Check it out right here. Yeah!